future holds potentially many changes for our industry. We will be conducting less physical testing with real dummies and real vehicles.
Have you heard of a man called Hiromu Naruse? He was the chief test driver and chief test engineer of Toyota for 47 years. His job was simple, yet incredibly dangerous. He had to ensure the sports cars Toyota created were safe for either the road or the tracks, which meant he had to test drive every car before they were released. From 1963 to 2009, Hiromu Naruse evolved into one of the most important test drivers in the Toyota Corporation, until tragedy struck. While testing a 1.5 million euro Lexus LFA prototype, Hiromu Naruse lost control and rammed into another vehicle and lost his life instantly. He was just 66. While the world celebrated his life and legacy, industry experts were left with burning questions. How could they make sure that this would never happen? What would be a perfect replacement for human test drivers? How could they ensure that they'd never lose another Hiromu Naruse? Welcome to Future Mission. Join us today as we explore the fast and furious world of test drivers and the robo-technology that is taking over test driving. Almost every day, a tragedy happens on the roads. And believe it or not, sometimes the reasons for these tragedies can go way back to the day the vehicle alone was tested. Before any vehicle is allowed into production for public use, it is first tested to its limits by specific individuals. However, we'll come to that later. First, let's bust some myths about vehicles and safety. Every form of transportation experiences some level of tragic accidents annually. However, the goal of the government and the companies who make these vehicles is to make that figure as close to zero as possible, because nobody has to suffer avoidable accidents. Over the past century, the number of safety features has increased tremendously in vehicles. Cars have been getting safer. In the 1950s, the seatbelt was introduced. 10 years later, airbags were also invented and mandated by the government for car safety. Then, other safety features like indicators, mirrors, crumple zones, cameras, sensors, and alarms eventually found their place in vehicles. Now, how can we know if these safety features have been effective? Well, from the moment of its implementation till now, car accidents went about 30% down. So yes, safety features have been effective. However, the goal is not to have the possibility of accidents fixed by only 30%, but ideally, eliminate them completely. But is it even possible? One major way companies are working on this is through quality control and test drivers. So what exactly does a test driver do? And how do they work with the auto companies to make driving safer? Before we can answer that question properly, we need to address the concept of quality control for vehicles. And for this, we will use a car made in India as an example. Tata is India's leading auto manufacturer. Their cars are known for their durability and performance. However, these cars are made for India in the first place. So, if they decided they wanted to sell their vehicles in the Swiss Alps, they would have to go through testing that would ensure the vehicles can maintain that level of durability and performance in a high-altitude area like the Swiss Alps. The vehicle would go through a two-part test: virtual testing and real-world testing. The virtual analysis is done using tools like CAE, Computer-Aided Engineering, which helps with virtual crash tests and dynamics. As a part of the process, the vehicle is tested for thousands of miles, with hundreds of scenarios, ensuring that the design is apt for the projected performance. Then, the real-world testing begins, with a development mule. A development mule is a test-bed vehicle that is equipped with prototype components, requiring evaluation. To make a mule, companies use dazzle camouflage, vinyl wraps, mesh draping, false body panels, hiding the design. At times, draping the entire vehicle with a single or double-colored vinyl. During real-world testing, a lot of the testing that happened in the virtual testing is repeated in the real world: battery testing, environmental testing, crash testing, amongst many others. All these are basically done for the sole purpose of determining whether a new car is ready for the road and environment it is being introduced to. Whether a car like Tata, which was built in India, could also perform seamlessly in a country like Switzerland. If the Tata vehicle passes these tests, it would be given a rating that allows it to begin mass production. While all these are happening, one person will have to take charge of the wheel Actually, two individuals. One is a living, breathing human being, and the other is a lifeless dummy. Sometimes, both of them work together to get the results required. Unsurprisingly, dummies are used mostly for crash tests. Before the crash test, a dummy is placed in the vehicle. Researchers apply paint to it. Different colors of paint are applied to the parts of the dummy's body most likely to hit during a crash. The dummy's knees, face, and areas of the skull are each painted with a different color. After the crashes are conducted, researchers take notes of the parts of the vehicle and dummy that were affected. However, some other tests need an actual human being at the steering wheel. Tests like the high-altitude testing require test drivers to take vehicles through tough and dangerous terrains, like the Swiss Alps. They will drive on mountains through roads that look like an F1 racetrack. However, while the test driver works hard to keep us safe, who works hard to keep them safe? That is the real question. No one wants to lose their life on a job. They might be prepared to risk it, like Hiromu Naruse and other test drivers do on a daily basis, but I would be damned to think that there is anyone out there doing it with a death wish. This is why test drivers are almost always automotive engineers. They are not just drivers who love the thrill of the machine. They are also experts on the vehicles that they are driving. A test vehicle is equipped with lots of equipment, such as brake temperature sensors, pressure monitors, inertia measurement instruments, calibrated distance and speed instruments, a ton of wires, switches, gauges, and other things. Test drivers are expected to carefully listen for sounds and report them, such as brake squeals, squeaks, rumbles, and vibrations. While operating the car, the test drivers are often expected to perform certain test routines. This can include stopping from a prescribed speed on an uncrowded street at a certain deceleration rate numerous times. Sometimes, they will be asked to deliberately heat the brakes to the point of fade and then stop the car quickly to get out with an infrared temperature device and measure rotor temps. Sometimes the car will be loaded with extra weight and ballast, including water dummies, which are torso-shaped containers filled with water to simulate the weight of people in seats. The routines are often done multiple times, till the desired results are recorded. It is a strenuous, dangerous job that pays only a living wage. This is why auto manufacturing companies like Tesla, Rivian, BMW, Volkswagen, and many others hardly ever employ test drivers directly. Instead, they outsource to contract firms to limit liability and to reduce costs, because they know how dangerous these tests can often be. In response to the risk, auto companies like Ford have started using robots to fill in the space of these test drivers, and it has become a reality at their state-of-the-art weather factory in Cologne, Germany. This factory can simulate the dusty conditions found in the Sahara Desert, the frigid temperatures in Siberia, and the breathtaking pressure levels of the tallest alpine peaks. It allows engineers to test vehicles in a way that is less impacted by travel limitations, which would be required in real-world testing. Ford recognizes that some of these tests push the limits of human endurance, even while they are within the relative safety of a car. The high-altitude test can make the driver faint if they are exposed to the condition for extended periods. Wind tunnel testing at those high altitudes requires several safety protocols for the human drivers. Their heart rate must be monitored. They need to have oxygen on standby and a paramedic on site. These things accrue cost and waste time, and believe me when I say, that is the best case scenario. So, their robot test drivers have come in real handy. At the moment, Ford has two robot test drivers, one named Shelby and the other Miles. They are durable machines that take the place of human test drivers through extreme testing. Some of these testings have to be done multiple times, and the robots are the perfect candidate for the job. The robot test driver's legs extend to the accelerator, brake, and clutch pedals, with one arm positioned to change gear and the other used to start and stop the engine. You wouldn't be wrong to call them drivers. They can operate at temperatures ranging from -40 degrees Celsius to +80 degrees Celsius, as well as at extreme altitudes. They can also be set up and programmed for different driving styles. The Ford Quality Control team has spoken about how they can run tests through the night without ever having to worry that the driver will need a sandwich or a bathroom break. Many people fear that robots will replace human beings and take their jobs with them. While this isn't entirely false, we shouldn't be afraid or surprised. Jobs have been disappearing for the last century. With the advent of new technology comes serious change, and we are ever-changing humans in an ever-changing world. So, it is our duty to adapt to the times. Take this for an example. Tesla and other EV companies are currently in the final stages of introducing full self-driving cars. Soon, all the taxis will run on autonomous, self-driving technology, which, if you didn't know, can be much safer and more trustworthy than a manned taxi. So, what will happen to the taxi drivers when their services are no longer needed? What should the test drivers and taxi drivers of this world do in the face of this aggressive change? I think we already know the answer to that question. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll wait for you in the next video.